Let's look at the economy in the US. The latest inflation figures have been released and they're higher than expected. Prices surged by 3.5% in the 12 months leading to March, which is up from the previous month's 3.2%. Now, Joe Siracusa, we've spoken off screen about these figures, and they don't paint the whole picture, do they?
No, they don't. The official figures, which are bad enough, do not include food and energy. Now, what I mean by food is what you put in your grocery cart, and energy is what heats your house, what fuels your car, and all the rest of it. And Americans are experiencing since 2020 an increase of 20% in terms of these things. Now, if you take into account that 78% of Americans, probably like Australians do, live from paycheck to paycheck. So that's less that goes into the food basket, and it's less that goes into the car and all the rest of it. So they're feeling the pinch. So when the president of the United States says, "Look, we're doing just fine. We got jobs growth," and all, they don't feel it. They're not feeling the love here, as a matter of fact. So they're going to hold it against Biden. They hold it against anybody, no matter who was in the White House. And of course, we've had Janet Yellen when she was head of the Federal Reserve, and at other times saying the economy is just fine. American people, they're not as stupid as they look sometimes. When big shots come on Sunday television and explain to them that it's all in their head, that they're having that the life is good and they just don't see it, they're not fooling anybody. I mean, these people know what they can feed their children. They know what goes in the car, et cetera, et cetera. And so that it becomes a disconnect between governments telling you, the good times are here,
Yeah.
and ordinary people telling you, look, you're just full of baloney here. This isn't working out.
Well, what can Biden do between now and November? He's been bragging about Bidenomics, but it's not really working.
Well, I think he should probably be doing a lot of praying here. I mean, he's trying to explain things to people. And look, I'm not going to be unfair to the president. This guy has aged dramatically in office in the presidency, like the prime ministership and other major positions. They age people. They take a lot of work, 16, 18-hour days and things like that. And Biden will be lucky if he's able to explain this story by the time he gets to the nominating convention in Chicago, which is going to be a hell of a show anyway, and from my 1960s days. And I think he's just going to have a tougher and tougher time. I mean, then we get this, this dissonance or this disconnect between what his administration says and what the American people feel. And so they're not feeling it. And keep in mind that one of the issues in American life is corruption in politics. I mean, we've got politicians who are worth $30, $40, $50 million on jobs that pay $174,000 a year. I mean, explain that to people. People know there's something wrong. And for the past 20 years, Pew Research has showed that the American people have given up on Congress. That is, the question is, will Congress do the right thing? And the answer 80% of the time is no. So the American people have this disconnect. And of course, that is exactly why Trump, or someone like Trump, got to the position he did, because he was able to capitalize on this American resentment towards Washington. So Washington hasn't done the job. All Washington has is one more war after another that it can't get out of, and it finds a new one, and the old ones expired, as a matter of fact. So I think Americans have had kind of a gutful of what's coming out of the White House. So when Biden says, the good times are here, the good times are rolling, they don't believe a word he says.
Yeah, and fair enough. This week, the Arizona Supreme Court ruled that the state must adhere to 160-year-old law, barring all abortions except in cases when it's necessary to save a pregnant person's life. Now, abortion is becoming a political issue at this election, and President Joe Biden has repeatedly promised to restore abortion protections after the Supreme Court's decision in 2022 to overturn Roe v. Wade. But what hurdles does Joe Biden face here? Is this a promise that he'll be able to keep if he is re-elected?
Not really. I mean, Biden, because he's Catholic and other things like that, he's oscillated between pro-life and pro-choice all of his life. And, right now he's pro-choice because a lot of people are moving in that direction. But keep in mind that, and I remember this well from going to university in the 60s and many of the young women around us, Roe v. Wade was not about running out there and getting an abortion. Roe v. Wade was decriminalizing abortion. That is, a lot of people were getting killed going to Mexico and strange places to get an abortion. And keep in mind that middle-class women, as women from middle-class families could go to their family doctor and quietly get an abortion. In the 60s, a lot of this resentment about having an abortion was aimed at people in the lower socioeconomic level because the government said you can't use federal money to get an abortion. So whereas a middle-class woman could go anywhere she wants with her friendly doctor, a woman who was on Medicaid or Medicare or something like that in America by American Social Security, she couldn't get it. She couldn't use federal monies. So it was that kind of thing. But, this idea today that, Donald Trump's jumping all over the place. And, of course, Roe v. Wade simply said when they got rid of it that it's up to the states. And the states can be very conservative. Gabriella, in the 1920s, the states agreed that prohibition was a good idea. That is, you couldn't have alcohol anywhere. And, of course, Americans did that. They did what they wanted to do. Aside from what you see in Hollywood, America is a very, very a puritanical type place, and this is a very touchy subject. I mean, it's so personal about what people do with these kinds of things. And the idea of the Democratic Party turning this into the big issue in the 2024 election, I think is a mistake because they don't want to go there. Now, these rules, these laws, Arizona has given, the Supreme Court there has given the legislators 2 weeks to bring that 1864 law into line with current events, which they may or may not do. But look, you can have all the laws in the world, Gabriella, but people don't have to listen to them. They're not going to pay attention to things. If people have things they have to solve or issues they have to solve, they're going to do it themselves. During Prohibition, you could not manufacture or sell alcohol. And I'll tell you what, we had a lot of alcohol in the streets and a lot of people taking advantage of it. And this idea that politicians are able to capitalize on the personal dilemmas that people have in their lifetimes, I find slightly off-putting myself, because they're talking about the worst decisions people have to make, whether pro or con, I don't care what it is. And they're trying to say that, my party gives you better shelter than the other party. I mean, now, of course, when I grew up, the idea of government was to stay out of people's personal lives. And here we are, front and center. We have the issue of abortion coming front and center in the 2024 election. And the two guys who are arguing pro-life and pro-choice are just it. Two old guys talking about things they barely know anything about.
That's true. And you wonder why people aren't interested.